prison gate could soon swing open for Omar Khadr. He could be back in Canada in just a few weeks. Ottawa and Washington need only approve his transfer from the American prison known as Gitmo. Khadr is seen here in this video as a 15-year-old in Afghanistan. Late in 2010, he pleaded guilty to killing an American soldier and was sentenced to 8 years. Khadr, now 25, has spent more than a third of his life at Gitmo. The Americans have branded him as a convicted war criminal, but others say he was a boy brainwashed by his father and should never have been put on trial. So here's a brief timeline of the Omar Khadr case. In July 2002, Khadr is shot 3 times in a firefight in Afghanistan. He's accused of killing a U.S. medic. In October 2002, the U.S. sends Khadr to Guantanamo Bay Prison in Cuba. November 2005, Khadr is charged with murder, conspiracy, and aiding the enemy. In October 2010, Khadr pleads guilty to 5 war crimes charges. He also admits to throwing the grenade that killed the American medic. Lt-Col Jon Jackson is Omar Khadr's U.S. military lawyer. He's joining me now on the line from Memphis. Thank you very much for being on the program with us, Lieutenant Colonel. Can you tell us how Omar Khadr is feeling about this news?
Well, I think he's hopeful about his return to Canada, but overall he's skeptical and he's frustrated with the amount of time it's taking for the Canadians and the United States government to effectuate his transfer.
Does he know where he will be going in Canada?
No, ma'am. Neither he nor members of his defense team know that. It's been the practice of the United States that anytime someone leaves Guantanamo, that is done under a veil of secrecy. And certainly, I believe Canada and the United States have an interest in Omar getting back to Canada, and that location will not be known to us until he arrives there.
Have you been in touch with his family? How are they feeling about the possibility that their son, their brother, will be back on Canadian soil?
While we have made a decision that the Canadian lawyers, John Norris and Bridie Bethel, have been in contact with Omar's family. Of course, they are hopeful that he will be back so that they can visit in person their son and brother, which they've been unable to do since his incarceration at Guantanamo Bay.
Do you believe that the Canadian government has expedited this process, or do you think that they have stalled it?
Well, it's tough for me to say that. I'm not in a position to say that it's been expedited or delayed. The only thing I can tell you is that the meetings that I have had with government officials on the United States side certainly have indicated to me that the Canadian government has not expedited it in the sense that every single question that is asked of Canada is answered immediately as it is in other cases. But this is a very complicated case. We understand that it's going to take time for these decisions to be made, but the reasonable amount of time has passed. So we were excited to hear that Secretary Panetta stated that the agreement to transfer him was going to be implemented relatively soon.
Yes, we understand that it is on Panetta's desk. Is there anything that could stand in the way of this happening, anything at the 11th hour that would cause Panetta to change his mind about signing off on this transfer?
Well, as far as Secretary Panetta is concerned, I don't think so. I think Secretary Panetta has all the information that he needs to make the decision approving the transfer. But when it comes to Guantanamo Bay, you just never know. Unfortunately, Guantanamo Bay is the home of the curveball. Every time you think something is going to go a certain way, it seems to change. So I would never say 100% that this is going to be signed off and executed in a normal manner, but we remain hopeful. I know Omar is hopeful yet frustrated, and we're just looking forward to him being back in Canada relatively soon.
Home of the curveball. We'll have to use that one again. Lieutenant Colonel Jon Jackson joining us from Memphis. Thank you very much for being on our program. John Norris is one of Omar Khadr's Canadian lawyers. He joins me now on the line from Sarnia, Ontario. How is Omar Khadr feeling about his return to Canada?
Well, he's very anxious. He's been waiting for an awfully long time for this to come, and certainly any sort of news that it may be imminent is good news for him.
And do you know anything about what federal penitentiary he will be in when he returns?
At this time, no. They've not shared that information with us. We don't expect to know anything about where he's placed until he is there and obviously back in Canada.
How would you describe the Canadian government's role in this? Have they been cooperative with the U.S. to bring Omar Khadr back?
Well, probably the governments are in the best position to comment on that. We certainly hope that they have been cooperative. They have a clear obligation to be cooperative and to do everything they can to facilitate this, and we certainly expect that they have been. It's very regrettable that there have been the delays that we've been met with.
Why have there been the delays?
I think that the American process is a complicated one. They're concerned about this being a model for other transfers. Their own legislation changed over the course of time since over the last couple of months, I should say. But at the same time, they've had well over a year to get this organized, and we really hope that we're down to the final steps.
Is there any reason that you can foresee why this might be delayed on the American end? We understand that this is on Leon Panetta's desk. Any reason it could be put off?
Well, anything can happen, and sadly this case has proven that to be true. But we also think that it's so close to the finish now that really everybody should be working hard to make sure that nothing further delays.
And what about Omar Khadr's family? How are they feeling about his return?
Well, they too have been waiting for this day, and it keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. They're desperate to have him home, to be with him again, to see him. And so any little bit of news that comes out is of the sort that we've been hearing over the last few days is good news for them.
How often are you in contact with your client? How is he?
He's holding up remarkably well, considering all the circumstances. We're just so impressed by how well he's doing. It's exceptionally difficult for us to maintain contact with him. As his lawyers were based in Toronto, he's obviously many thousands of miles away, and communication is very difficult, and that makes it very challenging to help him as best we can.
Do you think, Mr. Norris, that Omar Khadr is aware that Canadians are split on their feelings about Khadr's return to this country?
I don't know whether they're split or not. Certainly there are strong opinions on both sides. We think that there's very strong support for him to return, considering all the circumstances of his case. He certainly knows that there's been a lot of debate about him, but he also has great faith in the good sense of Canadians.
All right, Jon Norris, will continue to follow developments in this story. Thank you for your time tonight.
You're very welcome.